In a small, cozy office, the curtains were drawn. A pleasant twilight enveloped, smelling of incense. A session of fortune-telling was in progress. Opposite a young, pleasant, blue-eyed woman, outwardly not resembling a fortune-teller, sat a pregnant client and looked at her with anxiety and hope. Catherine said quietly, "Give me your palm, and think of your problem. I will try to see something." She first drove her finger along the lines on her palm, closed her eyes, concentrated, reading the lines of fate. Then she frowned, turned pale, recoiled, shook her head and said, "Here you say, her husband left her. The bastard does not want to raise a child. That's true. But it's not his child, right? You had an affair with a business traveler, a tall, brown-eyed, brown-haired man. And your husband found out recently, made a scene and left. Isn't that right?" The client, dazed and guilty, looked at the fortune-teller. "Yes, everything was like that." "And how did you know? Is it really on the handsaw?" "But I myself do not know from whom the baby will be. And now my husband has left me, and my lover has gone home to his wife. So nobody needs me at all. I love my husband, really, and that affair, it is so. With anger, decided to take revenge, to change the spouse. I'm so scared. What's going to happen next? Will I really be alone to raise a child?" Catherine again closed her eyes, drove her hand. Before her eyes flashed images, as if frames in a movie. She came to her senses and said, "No, you will not be alone. Husband will forgive you and return. He loves you too, but not immediately, but as soon as the baby is born. So wait. Do not pressure him. Give time to forgive." The client began to thank the fortune-teller, shoved the money, and ran away smiling. And Catherine exhaled and decided to take a break. After each divination, she needed time to recover. She sipped a sip of flavored coffee and closed her eyes, trying to relax and come to her senses. It was a gift passed down to her from her beloved grandmother Louise. She was a well-known herbalist and fortune-teller in the neighborhood. Catherine often visited her as a child, was very interested in everything that her grandmother did. She taught her fortune-telling, told her how the lines of fate go, and what they can learn. They collected herbs together. The girl liked everything very much, but she was not talking about any gift yet. You can't teach it, it's either there or it's not. For the first time she realized that she could see the future, when they were chatting with her friend Anne, lying on the couch. She jokingly gave her skinny little hand and said, "Will you see if I have a rich fiancé? When will I be married?" Catherine read the line of fate, as taught by her grandmother, and closed her eyes, concentrated. And suddenly an image appeared before her eyes. Anne in a wedding dress with their mutual friend John. The girl laughed and shocked her friend. "I see that you will marry our John. Whether he'll get rich or not, I don't know." Anne snorted and sulked. "You didn't pass on your grandmother's talent. You told me that on purpose to spite me." "Yes? I don't need that bastard. He's a head shorter than me. Your jokes are so stupid." But when a year later they danced together at the wedding of Anne and John, then everyone believed in the talent of Catherine. At first only acquaintances went to her, especially if the situation in life was difficult. Everyone wanted to know his fate. But the girl could not always see something. There were times when the gift seemed to go away, especially when she herself was sick. And herself she could not predict anything, saw only darkness and all. Catherine after school went to study psychology. It was close to her talent, and at the same time earned money fortune-telling, rented a small office in the hotel. She had no price list. Her grandmother strictly warned her not to do it. Otherwise, the gift would be gone forever, and you would bring trouble. Help people need to help unselfishly, from the heart, but from gratitude sincere also should not refuse. That's why I was happy to give what I got. And not so long ago, Catherine met Alex. He also just made his first steps in the professional field, trying to develop a network business. While the business was going hard, there were not so many clients, but the guy hoped that soon he will stand on his feet and the business will go. They met quite by chance, and so unusual. Catherine was getting off the bus in winter, slipped and fell in the snow, and Alex rushed to pick her up, shake her off like a gentleman. The girl took his hand to get up, and then she was like an electric shock. She looked at him piercingly and suddenly said, "Thank you. Be careful, please. You mustn't go anywhere today. Otherwise there will be trouble." The guy was taken aback and parried, "What are you, a seer? How do you know what will be and what will not? Or is this an original way of acquaintance? I'm flattered." But Catherine, with all seriousness, answered, "I am an ordinary girl to the seer I am far from. Just sometimes I can see the future on a hand. Listen to me, I'm not kidding. Don't leave the house today. You'll thank me tomorrow. If anything, here's my card." They said goodbye. Alex was having fun, thinking that the girl just decided to be original. He liked her. But on the same day he was really invited to a birthday party at a friend's house, but for some reason he didn't want to go. And he refused, citing fatigue and busyness. And when the next day he found out how the drunken party ended, he immediately remembered yesterday's acquaintance. At that birthday party everyone fought, the police came. So a chance acquaintance had kept him out of trouble, and she wasn't a charlatan. The guy was impressed and decided to track her down to thank her. So they became friends, and then they met, and fell in love. He did not give her fancy bouquets and did not sing serenades, just quietly and faithfully loved, and was always near. Catherine appreciated what she had. After all, she already had an experience of difficult relationships with previous boyfriends, where everything ended in a breakup. Therefore, she valued the relationship with Alex. They almost never quarreled. They began to live together. All would be nothing, but both very much wanted children, the age of 30. But Catherine, even at the beginning of the relationship, honestly admitted to the groom that she will never have children. She is infertile. The problem was revealed when she was still with her first fiancé, tried to get pregnant. But the doctors gave up on her after a thorough examination. There will never be children, and that's it. Because of this, her once boyfriend first and left her. Because of her diagnosis, Catherine was very worried, felt different from everyone else, an empty vessel. She couldn't bear the thought that Alex could also fail and leave her. But Alex was not like that. He sincerely loved the girl and accepted her as she was. He often comforted her and assured her that he would be there for her no matter what happened. Although in his heart, of course, he also dreamed of children. A year passed. They lived well, almost never quarreled, and decided to take a child from the orphanage to raise him, to love him as their own, that the meaning of life appeared. After all, it is for the sake of children and we try and achieve something in life. Catherine decided to go to the orphanage with Alex. "Look closely," she said. "Let's not make a mystery. Whether it will be a boy or a girl, I think the heart itself will tell us, will lead us to a son or daughter." They have been talking to babies in the nursery for an hour. Catherine almost cried. She was so sorry for these tiny babies, because they do not need anyone. Babies caressed, flattered to Catherine and Alex, asked for hands and told about themselves, asked to play. The woman was confused. She did not know whom she should choose. Alex, and at all bewildered, he had not imagined before how many in the world there are disadvantaged, unhappy kids. And then Catherine saw a small, thin, almost emaciated boy, about 5 years old. He was sitting under the table on the floor and stared blankly, not reacting to the guests. He didn't seem to be interested in what was going on in the nursery, and that was very strange. Catherine decided to wake him up a little and bent down to him and asked, "Hello, sunshine. What's your name? Come to our couch. It's fun, and a lot of gifts. Don't be sad. Would you like an apple? Or a chocolate candy?" The boy turned to face her. His eyes were full of inexpressible longing, like an adult's. He remained silent, sighed heavily, and turned away again. The woman did not expect such a reaction. She and Alex looked at each other and decided to ask the head of the school about this child. She immediately began to dissuade them. "If you mean Steve Govorov, I don't advise you to take this child. He is very sickly. There is a whole bunch of problems. Problematic, does not speak almost, stutters. And everything is not smooth with the mother. You will have a hard time with him. We've had Alex for 2 years now, and there's been no progress. He still shuns both children and adults and does not make contact. He lives in a world of his own and does not let anyone in. Apparently some strong psycho-emotional childhood trauma affected her." Catherine stubborn. She fell into the soul of this sad, looking like an old man, a baby. "And can we talk to him alone? But at least try. Please." The headmistress shrugged her shoulders. Your business. Try. But only useless all this. Who only did not try, and doctors and psychologists, all to no avail. The boy was brought into the office. The head tactfully came out. The boy sat on the edge of the chair and scared, with distrust, looked at the couple, like a wolf, prepared to go into a deft defense. Catherine cautiously tried to reach out to him, but he pulled his hand away, making it clear that he did not want to get acquainted. The woman did not give up, and began quietly, as if not with him, just allowed to say, "Steve, my name is Catherine, and my husband Alex. We came here to find a favorite son. We'd love him, take care of him. I would read him stories and Alex would teach him how to ride a bike. I really want you to be our favorite son. I feel like my heart is telling me the right thing. Tell me, would you like to live with us in a family? Or are you happy here?" The boy suddenly looked at her so intently, so maturely, and timidly held out his little hand to her, even smiled a little. The woman almost cried, she realized. The ice had broken and Steve had made contact, which meant he was okay with it. She stroked his skinny hand and said, "I want you to know that Alex and I will not leave you here. We will take you and love you. Do you believe me?" Nod. "Please, sweetheart. Will you wait for us?" The boy nodded his head and finally said the first word for all this time. "I'm not well here. I want to go home. Come back soon, Mom." Tears hailed from Catherine's eyes. She did not hold back her emotions, hugged the baby tightly and realized in her heart that it was her child. She deliberately did not try to read his line of fate. Let everything as fated, so it will be. But she realized for herself, they would not look at anyone else. Alex also liked the boy, so sorry for him. Yes, they will have to work hard to deal with him. The child was obviously very neglected, intimidated, so I wanted him to thaw, to give him a happy childhood. The supervisor was surprised when she saw that Steve communicates with Catherine. Before that, no one could achieve such success. Apparently, it was fate that brought them to him. So she decided not to delay the guardianship procedure. People are not bad, and the boy will still be better than in an orphanage. While the commission considered the documents, Catherine and Alex often visited the kid, talked a lot, so that he quickly got used to them. The boy reached out to them and was very much looking forward to being taken home at last. A month later, the couple took Steve home. He was very shy at first, but slowly got used to it. On the first day, Catherine dialed a bathtub of warm water, added baby foam, and called the boy to bathe. She wanted to pamper him. He went with pleasure. He really liked splashing and lounging in the bathtub, rather than bathing on a schedule with other children taking turns in a shabby common shower room. The woman brought him a bathrobe she had bought especially for her son, and went to the kitchen to cook dinner, and left the boy in the room to watch cartoons. Then Alex came back from work. He said hello, began to communicate with his son, and suddenly noticed a pendant on the child's neck. He asked with interest, "What an interesting thing. Can I see it? Where did you get it? Wow, I have the same silver one with a horse on it. How come? Come on, let's compare." Catherine was stunned when she came in and saw that her husband holds in his hands two identical pendants. He told her everything. They asked the baby, "Sonny, tell me, where did you get this pendant? Do you remember?" The boy nodded his head. "My mother gave it to me, the one with whom I used to live. She was good, kind. She loved me." Tears came to Catherine's eyes, and she cautiously asked, "And then what happened to Mom? How did you get to the orphanage? Do you remember anything?" Steve suddenly covered his face with his hands and cried, began to stutter with excitement. "I do not know. She disappeared, and I am someone else's evil aunts in the orphanage took away. I was crying and longing, and the nanny kept telling me that my mother had abandoned me and would never come back. I don't believe her, she's lying. They're all lying. My mom would never leave me. I think maybe she's dead. And they just don't tell me." The boy cried bitterly and inconsolably, and clung trustingly to Catherine, who stroked his blonde hair and whispered, "That's all, don't cry, don't be upset, my little one, it's all over now. Daddy and I will love you and keep you safe, and we won't let anyone hurt you. I promise." The baby quieted down, calmed down, and soon sweetly sucked in the arms of a new mother, and on the soul of Catherine was so good, as never in her life. Now she finally felt what it is to be a mommy, when you are responsible for the life of this small defenseless man. Alex said quietly. And yet I don't understand. How could Steve and I have the same pendant? I mean, they're handmade, and you can't find them on the market. Tomorrow I'm going to go and talk to my parents. I can't get over this mystery. It was my father who gave me this pendant for my birthday when I was a kid. You just happened to pick the boy with the same pendant as me. The next day, Alex went to his parents' house. He hadn't been there so often lately, his family and worries. Those were very happy. His mother set the table, and his father began to ask with interest about his family and work, learned the news about his adopted son. And then Alex came to the main thing. Dad, Mom, look at these two pendants. One is mine, which you, Father, gave me, and the second one was on our son's neck when we took him from the orphanage. How is that possible? Tell me. Dad, you told me 100 times that you had it custom made for me, one of a kind. Please tell me the truth. There was an awkward pause. My father and mother looked at each other anxiously, crumpled, and as if weighing whether to speak or not. My mother couldn't stand it. Why are you looking at me, Larry? It's time, apparently, to repent before your son and not only before me. Why don't you say anything? Tell me it's your sin. Alex didn't understand anything, and his father sighed and began to speak, realizing that there was no other way out. There was no way to keep silent. It was a long time ago. Stephanie and I had just got married. I loved her a lot, but we were so different. Both of us hot-tempered, often fought, and we were getting along. So I started a relationship with a woman on the side. Her name was Pam. I thought it wasn't serious, but then I got carried away, started flitting back and forth, living with two families. Stephanie found out, of course, and then she told me she was pregnant, and I had no idea. I'm not a bastard to leave a child without a father, so I broke up with that woman and chose your mom. I gave her that necklace as a keepsake, and the other one to your mom, sort of a symbol that I loved them both. Well, don't look at me like I'm without sin. That's all I know about Pam. I spent my whole life with Stephanie. She forgave me eventually, thank God, and I bemoaned myself after the obsession was over. I know it was wrong. Alex looked at his father, dumbfounded. What are you doing, Father? You and my mom have always been a model of family for me, and now it turns out like this. I'm shocked, to be honest. But since the baby has the pendant now, maybe he's related to me. Well, assuming theoretically that Pam was pregnant by you too. He must have gotten it somehow. The father waved his hands and began to cross himself. No, that's impossible. Pam wasn't pregnant by me. I'm sure of it. She had some problems with this case in general. I remember exactly. Alex asked the address where Pam used to live and decided to go there. What if she still lived there? The story with the pendant was getting more and more complicated, and therefore more interesting. At the specified address, Alex found an old abandoned house, where obviously no one had lived for a long time. Everything was overgrown with grass above the waist, the fence had fallen down, and the lock on the house was rusted through. The man called a neighbor, who was just coming down the street from the store with purchases. Hello, can you tell me where the woman who used to live here, Pam, has moved to? I really need to find her. It's very important. The woman shook her head sadly. Pam died, God rest her soul, about 10 years ago, so there's no way to talk to her. She was ill for a long time in pain. We helped her as much as we could because she had no relatives. Even for the funeral, the whole street contributed to it. Alex asked, It's a pity, but did she have children? Husband? Family? Was there no one at all? Is there such a thing? The neighbor sighed. Pam never married, and she never had children, that's for sure. With her illness, it was impossible. She lived alone, like a finger. She fed cats and stray dogs. She was a good woman, kind. Alex left. He didn't understand anything at all. What was the connection between himself, his adopted son, and the pendant, if Raya had no children? An intrigue, that's all. In the evening, when Steve was already sweetly asleep, Alex told Catherine about everything, she thought. Yes, this is the mystery of the century. Just like in a detective story. We need to find out more about this Pam. Well, with someone she was friends, socialized, worked somewhere. Maybe then we'll have a clue. It's still a dark forest. My husband suddenly asked, Listen, Catherine, you're a fortune teller. Can't you see something from the palm of Steve's hand? Give it a try. The woman immediately refused. I will not. Do not even persuade. First, with my loved ones my gift for some reason does not respond, 100 times tested. And secondly, I don't know what I will see there. No, let it go the way it's meant to go. I've already paid for my grandmother's talent with my infertility. I don't want to cause trouble again. But the mystery of the pendant persisted, and he went to Pam's neighbors again, hoping to find out something about her. He was lucky enough to talk to a neighbor who lived across the street from Pam. She remembered something important. Pam didn't have many friends. She didn't get many visitors. She was secretive and withdrawn. And when she got sick, she had a nurse from the hospital, Mary, who works in the therapeutic ward. There was no money to hire a nurse to give her shots and give her IVs, but Mary was cheap, and she was glad to have every penny. So she went to her for a long time, almost until her death, and at the funeral. And how could she? She cried. I guess she managed to get attached. The nurse had a little boy, a son. She came with him a couple of times because she had no one to leave him with. I can't remember anyone else. Oh, God rest her soul, Pam died so young, it's a shame. Alex came home with this news, told Catherine everything and asked suddenly, Do you think, sweetheart, is it even worth digging further? Look for that nurse? Or should we just give up and just live and raise our son? Who cares who his mother was or how he got that pendant around his neck? We're going to get ourselves in a lot of trouble. What if we find out that Steve's mom isn't dead and wants to take him away from us? Then what are we going to do? The baby is wonderful. He just began to revive. I would not want to break his psyche again. Catherine thought for a long time. Everything weighed, and then replied, You're right, of course, Alex. It's easier to not know anything. Live in peace. Raise a son. But I'm superstitious, you know. Think about it. It's not for nothing that I chose Steve in the orphanage, is it? And he just reached out to me? I mean, the super said he didn't contact me for 2 years. Maybe it's a sign of destiny that we should see the pendant. And help him find his mother? Remember how the baby talked about his mommy? With love, tenderness. It's not like his mom was a total lost cause. No, let's get to the end. We'll take it as it comes. If we find out that Steve's mom is dead, or she doesn't need her son, we'll calm down and move on. But this mystery will torment us all the time. Having secured his wife's support, Alex went to the very department where Mary worked. First, he approached the post nurse and began to ask questions. Good afternoon. How can I find Mary? She's a nurse here. I really need to talk to her. Can you help me? What shift is she on? For some reason, the nurse grimaced and replied angrily, No way. She doesn't work here anymore. Not for 6 months. She quit. If that's all you've got, leave. This is no place for small talk. I've got a line of patience. Alex was upset. His last lead had been severed. What to do? Where to find Mary now? He didn't know her address. No one here would give it. It was a dead end. And then an elderly nurse caught up with him. She tugged him by the sleeve and started pushing him into the inventory room. She was rambling in his ear. I know all about Mary. Don't believe Svetka. She's lying. Mary didn't quit on her own. She was accused of stealing drugs and went to jail. I can't say exactly where she's in jail, I think in Tver. But she didn't take anything, you know? The superintendent set her up. He had a crush on her, and she wouldn't take it. Not only that, she found out about his machinations, wanted to go to the police. So he took her out, so that no one would believe her anymore, made her look like a thief. And he pinned his own deeds on her. Mary's a good woman. You sort it out. It's not her fault. She's doing time for someone else's sins. She's a heartbreaker. It's not good. Alex woke up and asked. She had a son. A boy. What happened to him? Where is he now? The nurse answered. It is known where. They took him to the orphanage. They have no relatives, so now the boy is suffering in the orphanage without his mother. The whole life was broken by that bastard, our head, to a man. And no matter what, his conscience does not torment him. He lives happily ever after. Alex thanked the talkative grandmother and slipped her some money. He already knew what he would do next. He would postpone all business and go to the colony. He must find out everything. Talk to this Mary. Reassure her that her son was all right. That they had Steve. Unbelievable how much anguish she had endured. Catherine supported her husband and packed him everything on the road. and a thermos with tea and sandwiches, warm clothes, and she stayed with her son on the farm. Steve became more and more attached to her, ate well, stopped screaming at night, even stuttering almost gone. The boy loved to draw. It was his favorite pastime. Catherine bought him paints, a sketchbook, and the boy with pleasure for hours drawing. Mostly it was animals or cars, but often flashed the same gloomy drawing. Spears, arrows from everywhere flying, and some figure incomprehensible lying on the ground. Catherine understood. This picture is somehow connected with his past, but remembering the recent painful reaction of his son to questions did not get into the soul, tried that he thought less about bad things. They took long walks in the park. Steve was a boy calm, thoughtful. He did not like to run to madness, as many children. He loved feeding the pigeons and feeding stray kittens. They would take soft pats with them and feed the kittens that were born behind the pizza stall. Steve would pick up a tiny kitten, stroke it gently, and whisper, "You're so cute. Eat up. I brought you these. I'll come back tomorrow. Will you wait for me?" Catherine couldn't bear it. Her heart was breaking. She felt so sorry for the foundlings. She asked her son, "Steve, and do you want us to take one of them? Will he live with us? Choose which one you like best." The baby even shouted with joy and hugged Catherine with his warm baby hands. "Thank you, Mom. Of course I want to. Only to say shy. This one we'll take, Gray. He is so funny, with a white tie on his chest. Why don't we call him Fluffy? He's so fluffy, isn't he? I'm so happy. Now I'll have a best friend." "Listen, Mom. What will happen to his brothers and sisters? Mommy doesn't come to see them, does she? They won't be able to do it on their own, will they? They'll die, won't they?" "I'm so sorry." Catherine was ashamed. Her little son was kinder and more sympathetic than she was. She immediately replied, "Well, we can't take all of them. Let's take them to the animal shelter. They'll probably find good owners there, and they won't go to waste." Steve suddenly looked at her in a very mature way and asked, "Like me, right? My mom died, I guess, and me a new mom. You found, so that I would not be lost? I'm fine with you, Mommy, and Daddy's cool. I love you. We'll always be together, won't we? I don't want to go back to the orphanage, it's so bad. But you know, sometimes I miss that mom so much." Catherine could not stand it and burst into tears. Her emotions were overflowing. She hugged the baby, pressed against himself, and began to soothe him. "What are you saying, my son? Are you a kitten? You are our favorite person with Daddy. We're together now, forever. Don't worry, no one will give you to the orphanage. It's me and Daddy who will be lost without you. And that you're sad for your mommy, it's normal. You loved her. It's okay. Everything will work out. We'll manage together. Well, you take Fluffy, and I'll carry the others in a box. Let's go put our furry gang back together, shall we? We've got a lot of pet shopping to do." The baby immediately distracted from sad thoughts and began to ramble. What they choose a litter box, bowl, what food will feed Pushka, and how surprised Daddy will be when he returns. Catherine cheerfully answered him, and in her own soul was doing something unimaginable, she thought. God, what happened in the life of this little boy, that he at 5 years old reasoning like a wise old man? Where has his mother disappeared to? It seems that he was strongly attached to her and loved her, so she is clearly not a drunkard and not lost. There's been some kind of tragedy. No, Alex and I must get to the truth. I can't live peacefully if I don't find out what happened to his mother. Who is she, and where is she? Meanwhile, Alex was talking to the head of the colony in distant Tver. He said, "You're too late, my dear. Mary died 2 months ago, along with other prisoners, in a fire. It's true that a couple of them escaped, but they'll be brought back. It's only a matter of time." Mary's body was badly burned, unrecognizable, only her sweatshirt with her number on it, miraculously unburned. "So I can't help you." Alex was sad, because he had come such a long way, and it was all for nothing. He only asked in farewell, "You know, I talked to her colleague and she thinks that the head of the department slandered her. And Mary is innocent. As a professional, do you think that could be possible?" The stern man suddenly softened. "I've seen all sorts of things here, believe me. Every day I see murderers, drug addicts, thieves, and everyone else. This woman was quiet, pleasant, didn't get into trouble. She was abused by her co-workers, even spent a couple times in a prison hospital. She had it rough around here, that's for sure. As to whether she's guilty or not, it's hard to say. In my opinion, she doesn't look like a calculating bargainer who sells banned drugs. And who knows? Alex was riding back on the train and he was sad. So Steve's mom is dead, and now we won't know where the boy got my dad's pendant. But on the other hand, in time everything will settle down, and Steve will forget the past, and we will be the dearest and most beloved dad and mom for him. Alex came back, told his wife everything, and together they sympathized with the poor woman Mary, who may have been Steve's mom. Such a twisted, complicated fate. How terrible it was to be burned alive. And they decided that they would find out nothing more, for all the strings leading to the solution of the mystery of the pendant were broken. The man was pleased with the new tenant. Fluffy was so funny and affectionate, he caressed everyone, and little Steve literally did not leave his favorite. He took such good care of him, adored him, invented various entertainments. The boy directly revived with the appearance of the pet, began to laugh more often, smiling, and little by little came to himself after all the experience. Catherine began to gradually accustom Steve to communicate with children. After the orphanage, where children treated him so cruelly, he was difficult to contact, and the woman first just went with her son to the shopping center, where there is a children's room with rides. The child wanted to jump on trampolines or climb in nice soft balls, but there were already other children there, and he was afraid of being pushed, of being hurt. Catherine did not push, waited until Steve himself overcomes the fear. And then one laughing, snub-nosed girl helped. She boldly approached the little guy and said, "Hi, can we be friends? My name is Julia. What's yours? Come on, let's jump. I know how to flip. And you?" Steve was astonished and timidly replied, "I'm Steve. I'll be your friend. But you won't fight?" Julia laughed. "Why fight? Decent kids don't fight. That's what my mom says. We'll be friends. Come on, let's go." And they, holding hands, ran to the trampolines. Catherine, with bated breath, followed her son, but he was laughing, talking about something with a girl, and she exhaled and thought to herself, "Thank God." Steve finally realized that not all kids are bad and that they can be friends. Things are going to get better now. I never thought I'd be so worried about my son. He's made a little success, and I'm so happy. It's like I won $1 million. So that's what motherhood is all about. When everything that happens with your child is more important to you than your own life. It's so great. One day, a strange woman came to Catherine's appointment. She was very poorly dressed and had a huge ugly burn scar on her cheek. The client was visibly nervous and began with the main thing. "Hello. I really need your help. You could say you are my last hope. You see, I'm looking for my son. It so happened that I was in trouble and he was put in the orphanage. But I don't even know which one. I don't know where I can find my son. My heart is torn to shreds. I cry every day. I beg you to help me find him. Only I have no money at all. Your services must be paid." Catherine felt so sorry for this poor lost woman, who was killing for her son. She replied, "Don't worry about money. I'll just look at you like that. Give your hand, concentrate, and think about your child. I will try very hard to help you." The fortune teller first looked at the line of fate, and then began to drive her hand on the palm of the client's hand and closed her eyes. Immediately there was a vivid image. Flames, panic and turmoil, frantic screams. And then suddenly this woman. She held Steve in her arms and stroked his blonde head, saying, "Son, my favorite, happy birthday to you, my sweet. Mommy has prepared a present for you and baked a delicious cake. I love you so much, my little boy. Grow up healthy to please your mom." The boy was clinging to his mother, caressing her, and laughing merrily. Catherine immediately opened her eyes. She turned pale. Sweat ran down her temples. She felt sick. In her head thought, so here she is, the same Mary, Steve's mom. So she's not dead. She's alive. Oh God, what's going to happen now? No, I can't hide the truth. It's wrong. I must tell her everything. The visitor interpreted the fortune teller's fright in her own way and almost shouted, "What did you see? Don't be silent. Something bad happened to my son, didn't it? Is he alive? I beg you, give me the truth. I'm all exhausted." Catherine exhaled and resolutely answered, "Your son is alive, do not worry. And I know where he lives now." Catherine did not dare to say the most important thing, stammered half a word. Mary looked at her with such hope, in her eyes glistened with tears, and the fortune teller decided. It so happened that my husband and I recently took a boy from the orphanage. I am infertile. And it just happened to be your Steve. My husband on his neck noticed a special pendant. He has the same. That's where it all started. We started to unravel the mystery of the pendant. It's a long story. Anyway, Alex was at the colony the other day and they told him you were dead. Mary was crying. She grabbed the fortune teller's hand and begged her. Are you telling the truth? Do you have Steve? Oh my God, I'm so happy. I found my son. Please, please let me just take one look at him. Would you like me to get down on my knees? He's the only reason I ran away. I know I'm dead. They'll find me anyway, but I couldn't do it without my son. I couldn't live, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. I decided to let them find me, kill me, tear me alive. I didn't care, as long as I could see my son. Tell me, does he call you Mom? He probably forgot me, didn't he? It's been 2 years. The fortune teller said, Steve is a wonderful baby. He calls us Mom and Dad, loves us. He poor barely got away from the orphanage life. It was hard for him there. But he remembers you, just not all of you. But several times he said that he loves his mom, that he misses her. I don't know what to do, to be honest. Can I call my husband? I'll get some advice. Catherine could not stand it, called Alex at work and told him everything. He came immediately. He poured Mary with questions. Say, how come you went to prison? I talked to the nurse on your ward and she's sure you're innocent. How did you manage to survive anyway? The colony's convinced you're not alive. Mary sighed heavily and began to tell me everything. You're asking me how I got the pendant. It's simple. I had been taking care of a sick woman, Raisa, for a long time. She had almost no money to pay me back, so she gave me this pendant. And then I put it on my son Steve, when they took me away. I worked as a simple nurse. I tried to help people. I was not lazy. But as it happened, I got hit on by our head of nursing. He was a real ladies' man, never missed a skirt. Many girls agreed to this and tolerated, because they did not want to lose their place. But I couldn't do that. I resisted in every possible way. And once I saw Henry taking drugs, strong drugs and tranquilizers, and they are accountable. He was selling them for a lot of money. So I told him stupidly that if he didn't leave me alone, I'd tell the police and his career would be over. If I'd known how it would end, I never would have done it. But this bastard got it all in his head, and a week later, he set me up. I don't know who put the drugs in my purse, but he took them out in public and called the police. And then, under false pretenses, he pinned the whole thing on me. I got 3 years. I've already served 2.5. Alex was amazed. So, why did you run away? You didn't have much time left, did you? And now they'll be looking for you, won't they? Although, they are sure that you are burned. But how will you live if you're dead according to the documents? Then it's even worse. You're invisible. You won't be able to get papers or a job. Mary sighed heavily and continued. I wasn't going to run away. Where would I go? It was our Pakancha, Seema, who decided she needed to go out urgently. So she set that fire in the canteen and made a fuss. Everything burst into flames instantly. I just happened to be there. So I thought, what if this is my only chance to find my son? You don't know. You can't imagine what it's like when they try to strangle you almost every night for 2 years, make a bicycle, beat you professionally so as not to leave any traces. I've been in the prison hospital twice with concussion, stabbed once. Yes, you say it was 6 months. I was afraid I wouldn't make it to the end of my sentence, so I threw off my sweatshirt with the patch and I ran to the service station and climbed into the truck that was hauling our sewn mattresses. I was not tall enough, 2 tops from the pot, so they didn't notice me in the mattress even during the inspection. So I managed to escape. But what's the use? I didn't even know where they took my son. What happened to him? Where do I look for him? I just wandered the streets, that's all. Then I came across this ad that you could help me see the future. I never believed in such things. But my feet came here for some reason, and for good reason. The woman fell to her knees and begged again. I beg you, please let me see my son. I love him more than life. I ran for his sake. I want to hug him, hold him, and kiss him. Kiss my baby. Alex helped her up and answered, You must understand us, Mary. We don't mind you and Steve seeing each other. But come to your senses. Do you think it's a good idea right now? The kid's just calmed down, stopped being wild and inhibited, and is socializing with the kids. Now imagine, you come and tell him you're his mom. The boy, of course, will be happy. But then what? You have to go to penance to finish your sentence. You'll be gone for 6 months. And what happens to Steve? He'll think it's a double betrayal. Don't you get it? Mom disappeared once, he barely survived it, and then she found him and disappeared again. Mary was silent for a long time, thinking, "You're probably right. I can't hide forever, and I can't live without documents. But what can I do? I will not return to the colony until I see Steve." Catherine thought of a way out. "You've changed a lot, and Steve won't recognize you now. Let's go to our house. I'll tell him you're an acquaintance of mine. You'll stay a little with my son, but without revealing the truth to him, okay?" Alex added, "And I'll find you a good lawyer. He'll help you to make sure that your sentence is not added, because they can do it for escape. I promise that we'll tell Steve the truth together, but later, when he's a little older, so as not to traumatize the child's psyche." Mary begrudgingly agreed. Better this than nothing. After all, the couple could not let her on the doorstep at all. She is not alive. She is nobody. She has no rights to Steve now. It was a terrible thing to realize. She entered the house on stiff legs. Steve was painting under the supervision of the nanny. When he saw Catherine and Alex, he rushed joyfully toward them. "Hooray! Mommy and Daddy are here! I missed you so much! Oh, who's this? Do we have company?" Catherine answered as delicately as possible. "Yes, my son. Aunt Mary is a good friend of mine. She's going to stay with us for a while." The boy looked at Mary so intently, so thoughtfully, as if he was remembering something, that her heart sank and went to her heels. A lump came to her throat. She wanted to hug, kiss, caress her son, but remembering Alex's words, she kept her promise and did not do it. But how hard it was for her. The woman only smiled, patted the baby's curly hair, and said affectionately, "Hello. Let's be friends, shall we? You'll show me your drawings." "Wow, it's beautiful." Steve immediately began to show everything enthusiastically, but still looked at Mary as if he was trying to remember something. Apparently her voice was familiar to him, but he could not remember where from. But still Steve was immediately attracted to her, reached out, subconsciously felt that it was a soulmate. Mary read him a story in the evening, and put him to bed, and then went into the kitchen and began to sob, covering herself with her hands. Catherine and Alex began to calm her down. "Mary, what's wrong? Everything seems fine. I saw my son." "Why are you crying?" the woman mumbled inarticulately. "I am so hurt that Steve did not recognize me. He remembered something, but did not recognize his own mother. Although why should I be surprised? When they took me away, he was only 3. He cried like a little boy, screamed himself hoarse. They literally pulled him away from me by force. And prison does not make anyone beautiful. My voice is now hoarse forever, endless bronchitis, and my face is disfigured after the fire. You can't imagine how unbearably painful it is for me now, how I want to close my eyes and let everything be as it was before. My son and I are together, and there are no troubles." Alex sighed and quietly answered, "Unfortunately, it won't be like that. But you have to believe that all the good things are still ahead. You need to turn in and finish your term, and about the son, do not worry, you see. He is well with us, and for us from like a light in the window. We are very attached to Steve. We love him with all our hearts, and the thought of parting with him is unbearable for us. Understand us too. But no matter how hard it is for us, Catherine and I understand that Mom is Mom, and we will not prevent your communication. One thing I ask, let Steve grow up. You have everything in your life settled, and then we all tell him the truth. Otherwise, if we do it now, he will again shut down. Stop trusting people." Mary wiped away her bitter tears and answered quietly, "You're right. I have no other choice. Though I bear the cross for other people's sins, but it seems to be my fate. And thank you, kind people, for taking my son from the orphanage. I can imagine how he suffered there because Steve is so homely, such a quiet kid. He always was. And he hated daycare, and even the orphanage." Alex persuaded Mary, and she turned herself in. Thanks to an experienced lawyer, she didn't get any more time, and he got her a reasonable sentence. Mary was no longer bullied, and after 6 months in prison, she was finally released. To be near her son all the time, Catherine allowed her to work for them as a nanny. The woman was happy. Now she could see her baby every day, know what he lives, communicate with him and love. Catherine and Alex could not stay away from Mary's misfortune. They jointly collected money and the woman had a corrective surgery on her face. Now her appearance was no longer so repulsive. Strange as it may seem, the newlywed couple became very close friends with Mary, although it would seem that the situation did not favor it at all, because sooner or later they were to give Steve to his mother, and how to do it they had no idea, as they had long ago sincerely loved this serious smart boy. But anyway, they saw that Mary was a very good woman, and really loved her son. It was just that she was unlucky to have a scoundrel on her way, who had broken her fate by separating her from her own child. And they had no moral right to deprive her of motherhood. Alex and Catherine helped her to put her own house in order. They made fresh repairs, glued wallpaper, and now it was possible to live there with a child. The question of employment remained open. It was very difficult, because with a criminal record no one was in a hurry to hire Mary even as a simple nurse. Then Alex arranged her in his company as a storekeeper. Mary was now responsible for providing the office with stationery, water, supplies for the kitchen, and made sure that all the faucets and appliances worked. The woman tried hard, grateful to these people who did so much for her. And of course she was counting the seconds until the moment when they would tell Steve everything and she would take him home. The little boy went to the first grade. He was led there by all three of them, Catherine, Alex, and Mary, and each of them was very worried about their first grader, how he would be able to adapt to the team. Will he like his first teacher? But everything went perfectly. The boy went to school with pleasure, brought good marks. He has long been attached to Mary, did her homework, shared sorrows and joys, and at the family council decided that pull more cannot be. You need to tell Steve the truth and do not torture each other. It was unbearable. Catherine at night howled into the pillow, realizing that soon Mary will take Steve, and she and Alex will be alone again. It was very hard to imagine. Steve was playing with the soldiers when all three of them, Mary, Catherine, and Alex, came into his room. The man, as head of the family, took it upon himself to start this difficult and so important conversation with the baby. He began cautiously, his voice trembling. "Son, we want to tell you something very important. We found your birth mom, the one you lived with before the orphanage. She didn't abandon you at all, and she didn't die like we thought. She was just locked up by some evil uncle. But she loved you all those years, never forgot you, and missed you very much. Tell me, would you like to see her?" Steve immediately perked up, his eyes lit up, and he exclaimed loudly, "Is it true? Mom's alive? I knew it. She couldn't have left me. Where is she?" Mary couldn't take it anymore and rushed to her son. "I am your mommy, son. I love you. Do you remember how I sang you a song about a teddy bear? How we used to make a snowman in the yard? How I used to call you my kitten? It's not my fault that we were separated, and I'm very grateful to your new mom and dad that they took you from the shelter. Come here, my little one. Let me give you a hug." Steve immediately went to her. Now he remembered where he had heard her voice. He even cried from surprise and joy. In conjunction with him, and Catherine could not withstand, burst into tears. In her soul was a complete discord. On the one hand, she was happy that mother and son are finally together now, but on the other hand, she also sincerely loved the baby, clinging to him, and could not imagine how to live without him now. Alex was very sad. He was already so used to the fact that the baby lives with them, calls him daddy, and the care about him very united the family. How will they be without their mischievous little boy? Farewell came out heavy. Catherine promised Steve that they will still often see each other, friends, but on the soul was unbearable pain of loss. Yes, and the boy was confused. He was used to foster parents and he was sorry to part with them, but also to his mother very much wanted. On the nervous ground, Catherine completely crippled. The house was suddenly empty. There was no one else to take care of, check lessons, play. She was so sad, she did not want to eat at all, no appetite, and vomited to vomit. She had given up fortune-telling. What use was it when her own fate was collapsing and she could not help herself? The gift was gone. She could no longer see anything. Alex could not look at his wife's suffering without tears, and one evening he said decisively, "This cannot go on. We are going to see a doctor tomorrow. Your face is gone. You walk like a shadow. You vomit all the time. It's no joke. I love you, honey, and I don't want to lose you. I don't want to get sick. You have to accept what happened and move on, you know? Do you want us to go to the orphanage and take the baby?" Catherine waved her hands negatively and answered with just her lips, "No, I don't want anything. Why do you need me, Alex? I'm a worthless woman, an empty shell. I can't give birth to your child. I managed to choose Steve, whose mom is alive and loves him, and now I've lost my son. I don't want to live." And she turned her back to the wall and shed tears. Her husband realized that it was useless to oppose her now, so he only wrapped her like a child in a blanket and quietly stroked her, thinking to himself, "My fool, I only love you." Alex, still despite the resistance, took Catherine to the hospital, could not find a place in the hospital corridor. While his wife was examined, time seemed to stop. Then the doctor came out and sternly said, "Come into the office. I know the cause of your wife's indisposition." All inside, the man squeezed, and in his head flashed pictures, one more terrible than another. But he decided for himself, no matter what happened, he will fight with Catherine for her health. His wife was lying on the couch, pale and frightened, and dazedly looked at the monitor. Alex stood next to her, and the doctor began to drive the sensor and said, "Here, see this little spot in the corner? That's your baby. Your wife is pregnant, which with her diagnosis is nothing short of a miracle. I congratulate you. And nausea and toxicity are normal in early pregnancy, and so are mood swings due to hormonal changes. I'll prescribe vitamins and medications to improve her condition. So wait for your heir and take care of your spouse. No nerves, just peace and positive emotions. All the best. I'll be expecting you in a month to register." Alex could not believe Catherine was also sobbing because she had long ago put a cross on herself, considering herself infertile, and now she was so happy. They will have a baby, so long awaited, long suffering and loved. Her mood immediately skyrocketed. She wanted to shout to the whole world about her joy. Alex also had only one thought in his head. "I'm going to be a daddy soon. And there will be little feet stomping in our house again, and even if we don't get enough sleep, I'm ready to stay awake and keep my baby in my arms." The man surrounded Catherine with such attention, care only, and circled around her, and she was bathed in love and waited with anticipation for the appearance of the baby into the world. Of course, they told Mary and Steve about everything. The woman was sincerely happy for the spouses and exhaled with relief. "Thank God. Now my conscience will finally stop tormenting me. And then I was worried that even though involuntarily, but caused you suffering, because you got used to and loved Steve. And now everyone will be happy, and you'll have a baby of your own. It's a gift from God." Catherine decided never to guess to anyone, and to focus only on the family, because it is the most important thing in life. And what and how it should happen, it is not for us people to decide. Everything is God's will.